Hello, beginning orchestra students. Happy snow day. I hope you're having a good day at home. I know you're still doing schoolwork, but you're not at school if you're a Monday, Wednesday campus kid. So, we are gonna still try to push on with our practice records and our fingerboard geography stuff. So, if you missed last week, I posted a video for worksheet number 3. I'm going to include it in the email I'm sending to your parents in case you were gone and didn't get that yet. Some of your parents contacted me ahead of time, some of them didn't. So make sure you do that and understand that first before you try this one. If you don't get the other one, you're not going to understand this at all. So if you haven't done worksheet number 2, which is naturals on the fingerboard, then stop watching this video right now and go watch the other one instead. All right, if you're still with me, we get to talk about sharps. So we've had these notes C sharp and F sharp that we've played, but we haven't really talked about why they're C sharp and F sharp instead of just C and D. All right, so that's what we're getting into today. The exciting thing about today is that using sharps, you can actually name every single note on your instrument. So that's what we're working towards today. Now, first off, let's review our natural half steps. So if you remember my ridiculous little rhyme, babies cry, eagles fly, that helps us know which 2 letters are right next to each other instead of having one space between them. So B and C are going to be 2 circles right next to each other without a note in between, and then E and F are right next to each other. So if we're filling out a chart, we start with whichever letter, in this case A. So A to B is not one of those. So we're going to skip a circle and write B here. B to C is one of those, so we're going to go in the circle right next to it. C to D is not, so that's a whole step, so we're going to skip a circle and go right here. D to E is also a whole step because it's not one of these. So again, skip a circle. E to F is a half step because it's part of our poem. So eagles fly, those 2 are touching. F to G is a whole step. So we skip. G to A is also a whole step. All right, so you should be able to do that pretty quickly at this point. If not, you may need to do some more practice on worksheet number 1. All right, so let me know how this is going, and that way I can know if we need to do some more practice at level 1 or level 2. Okay, so we've got all this, but then we have all these empty spaces. So now we need to talk about what we do with those. Okay, so a little bit of background. Every musical note has 3 versions. So there is a flat version, a natural version, and a sharp version. These are all natural versions of the notes. Okay, so there's nothing added to them. Natural is what we just call it when there's no sharp, no flat, it's just plain. There is a symbol for natural that looks like, whoops, looks like that. Okay, kind of, sort of. But it's the same as the plain old ordinary note. So don't worry about when we use that symbol yet. That'll make sense eventually. So for right now, we have naturals, which is just the plain letter. And then we have sharps, which you have had in your books already. And then we have flats, which you have not had yet, but if you play other instruments, you've probably seen those before. All right? So we could have D natural, D sharp, and D flat. Those are all 3 different notes. Okay? Or we could have F natural, F sharp, and F flat. Again, 3 different notes. All right? So there's 3 different types of every single note. Today, we're only worrying about the naturals and the sharps. So we're just going to pretend flats don't exist for right now. We'll worry about those later. All right, so here's what you need to know. The sharp version of a pitch is a half step higher than the natural. So a half step higher means we go to the next circle to the right if you are doing it on the pitch line like this. It's like a number line but with letters. Okay, so half step higher is to the right, closer to the next letter in the alphabet. Or if you're on your instrument, let me flip it over here. Oops. Here. If you're on your instrument, it's a half step closer to your bridge. Cellos, this is confusing. Bass, this is confusing. Because for you guys, higher sound is actually lower towards the ground, right? Because if you're holding your cello or your bass and you want to make a higher sounding note, you actually put your finger closer to the floor because of the way you hold your instruments, okay? So I'm sorry, it is what it is. Get used to it. I can't change that fact, unfortunately. So higher is closer to your bridge, not closer to your scroll, okay? So it's closer to your bridge. So if we go right here, we're gonna fill in the blank spaces using sharps. So we start here where we've got the natural note filled in. The note right next to it is that same letter, but sharp. So we have A and then A sharp. B, C, the next blank hole we have is here. So if we look up here, we had a blank. So C, keep the same letter, but add a sharp. D, keep the same letter, so it's still D something, but it's sharp. Now, one thing to note, and I didn't do a good job on the, well, I did okay. All right, when we draw hashtags, usually it's like 2 slanty lines that way and 2 straight lines. When we draw sharps, it's 2 straight up and down lines like that, and then we angle the lines across. And tic-tac-toe, everything's straight. Now, am I capable of drawing straight lines? Not really, but the sharp should look like 2 straight lines up and down, and then the ones across are angled. Now, it's not a super big deal, but it's something you should know as a musician, okay? So D goes to D sharp. Notice that since we say the word sharp afterwards, we're writing the sharp after the letter, okay? So E, F, our next spot is going to be same letter, F, but sharp. G, same letter, but sharp. So using sharps, we can actually fill in our whole thing, and this is why we had to note natural half steps. Because if we were to make a B sharp, where do we end up? In the C spot, okay? So that's why we had to know that B and C are natural half steps, because there is no note between them called B sharp. All right, so A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A. I just realized I don't have my light on. I bet that'll help. Is that better? Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so now all we're doing is just like we did on the last worksheet, we're taking our paper and we're turning it sideways so that it looks like you're looking at your instrument strings as if you were holding your instrument like this. Okay, so now we have open string D, so that's our first circle. We have a whole step to E, half step to F because eagles fly, whole step to G, and whole step to A. And that gets 4 tapes up, which is as far as we definitely need to go. So what we need to do is just fill in the blank spots. So D, half step up, keep the same letter, D, but make it sharp, D sharp. F, half step up, we're gonna keep the same letter, F, but make it sharp. G, half step up, same letter as G, but it's a G sharp. All right, so this is a completely different note. If you were on the piano, you would be pressing a completely different key, but it shares part of the name. All right, so over here, G, if we started on the G string, G, the next hole would be G sharp, A goes to A sharp, B, C, babies cry, C goes to C sharp. All right, so it's not too complicated. We're just filling in the holes with sharps. All right, now back side of your sheet, or page 2, depending on how it was printed, looks like this. So you have an entire fingerboard for your whole instrument, and I just put a picture up here so you can remember what it looks like, what is closer to the bridge, what's closer, so closer to the bridge, sorry, I put it the wrong way, closer to the bridge, or closer to the scroll. All right, so step 1, we need to fill in all the natural notes. You remember babies cry, eagles fly. Now, this is going to be different depending on if you're a cello, a bass, a viola, or a violin, right? Because viola and cello have C, G, D, A. Violins have G, D, A, E, and bass has E, A, D, G. So what you do for your open string is going to depend on your instrument. I will do, well, yeah, I can do like one string, and I'll do like all instruments on this string. So we're going to start with our violas and cellos. So we'll use purple ink for violas and cellos. I'm going to try to write tiny. So your open string is a C. So the first step we're doing on this string is we're doing whole steps, or naturals, sorry, filling in all the naturals. So C to D is a whole step. D to E is a whole step. E to F, eagles fly, is a half step. F to G is a whole step. All right, so we filled out our naturals. You would do that for all your strings, but we just did it for one. Then we need to fill in our extra holes using sharps. So we're gonna look at what came right before it, C. So that's what we're gonna start with, but now we need to sharp it. So that's what goes in that hole. Here's our next blank spot. What came right before it, D. So we're gonna write the D, but then we're gonna add a sharp. Over here, what came before it, F. So it becomes F sharp. Okay, so that's all you have to do. That's your first string for cello and violas. I'm going to change pen colors so that it's a little bit more obvious whose is whose. So we will use green for bass. All right, so bass, your lowest string is E. Oh, can you see that? That is really faint. Let me change greens. Use this one. Okay. There we go. So your lowest string is E. E to F, eagles fly, that's a half step. So if you are a cello or viola, you're done. You can stop watching this video. All right? So bass, only pay attention to the green. Ignore the purple. Pretend the purple isn't there anymore. All right? So E to F is a half step, eagles fly. F to G is a whole step, so we're going to skip this circle and go here. G to A is a whole step, so we skip this circle. Whoops, I just wrote a G. I don't know why I did that, sorry. A to B is another whole step, so B goes right here. Now we need to fill in the spots where there isn't any green, our blank spots. So E, F, we need to fill in this hole, so look what came right before it, F, but this one is F sharp. G came right before this open spot, so it becomes G sharp. A came right before this spot, so this is A sharp, and then B is our last one. Okay? Final one, violins. I'm going to try not to confuse you. Let's use pink, maybe. We'll see if this shows up enough. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Violins, I want you to pretend that I am writing. Actually, no, let me just get a whole new paper. How about that? Be less confusing. All right, so violins, we're looking at your last one. Sorry, bass, I should have done that for you. Bass, that's all you need to know. Have a good day. Violins. So your lowest open string is a G. G to A is a whole step. A to B is a whole step. B to C, babies cry, is a half step. C to D is a whole step. So G, A, B, C, D. We just so happen to end up on all of the filled in circles here. That's not going to happen on every string, so watch out. All right, so to name this spot, we look at what came before it, G, but now it needs to be sharp. Fill this spot, what came before it, A, but this one is A sharp. And then we need to fill in this spot, C came before it, but we are doing a sharp. Okay? That's all there is, and you can fill in the rest. Have a great day. Happy practicing. Make sure you also get the new practice record from your parents that will be in that email so that you can be practicing the right material. Have a great day, and I'll see you next week.